Get started. So the midlife mid-year reset. Nice to meet you. I'm Rachael, the founder of the Kickass Midlife Method, and we're going to talk today about how to reclaim your energy, health, and body confidence and feel kick-ass in 2025. Solstice has just gone, so we're almost, July the 1st is not that long away, and we're almost halfway through the year. So, just an introduction for those of you who don't know me. So, I'm a certified midlife women's health, fitness, and performance coach. I have been coaching women since 2009, so a very long time. And in that time, I've helped thousands of women lose weight, build confidence, and achieve life transforming goals. Because, along with strength, yoga qualifications, menopause qualifications, I'm also qualified in running and triathlon. Now I focus on helping midlife women optimize their health, performance, and happiness through ditching unhealthy body fat and building strength for life. Before that, before 2009, I used to be a journalist for national newspapers and magazines, primarily as a health editor. So I've written and have been writing about diet, nutrition, and health, largely in the 30s to 40s to 50s age range since God knows how long. In terms of the fitness, when I left journalism, I launched my first women's fitness boot camp, which was called Fitbit Boot Camp back then, and that was all in person. And then I later launched Girls Run the World, which was taking women around the world to races, training them for events, before coming to the Kickass Midlife Method. So I've presented at the running show on menopausal running. And so today, what to expect, you're going to just get real talk. I'm going to talk through many of the things that I come across when I'm coaching women in the 40s to 50s, my demographic of those women in the Kickass community online are aged from 44 to 66. So I'm going to talk through the strategies I use with them so that you can have this kind of blueprint and at least those kind of reflections as we go through. It should last about 30-40 minutes, and with time for any questions at the end. And these are some of the results, just to show you what you can expect when you kind of take on board the guidelines that I'm going to be discussing in this presentation. So some women have been with me for 6 months and are still ongoing. Some people are now with me for 2 years and have now gone on from my body confidence program, body confidence for life program, into aging adventurously, which is more around those people who want to take on events and looking for something else. So as you can see, these women are all ranging, from 42 to I think 59 in these pictures. Before we go on, if you are interested in coaching, anyone on this call gets the first two women to message me, and you can get my number via that QR code to get £500 worth free of one-to-one coaching. So just message me the word kick-ass. If you message me and the coaching's not for you, you're not beholden, but if you're the first person to do it, the first two, then obviously I'll go through that in order. So, has 2025 got away from you? I'm assuming because you're on this call that it has. And you're not alone. Obviously, you probably have all read those surveys about January and people making resolutions in January, and nearly 80% have abandoned those goals by February. But if you're reaching July and realizing you're not where you want to be, so maybe there's been this little voice banging away in the back of your head saying, oh, I really want to do this. I'm fed up with feeling rubbish. I feel I've got no energy. I've got no motivation. I'm just getting bigger and bigger. My body's just morphing into something that I don't recognize anymore. You've got 6 months to change. And as I showed from those testimonials before, some of those were done in 90 days. So what you shouldn't do is wait for motivation to strike. And I'm going to explain why. And you want to be thinking about creating structure and accountability, and most importantly, a growth mindset, because there's a lot of misinformations. If you're in your late 40s, 50s, 60s, we've been brought up in an era where we've been missold and told lies really about diets and nutrition and food choices that are just actually wrong. So getting rid of that is letting go of some fixed mindsets and being open to learning. So obviously, why is this such a difficult time? Midlife chapters, we're what we call the sandwich generation. We've got kids we're caring for on one side, and now obviously aging parents who are living longer and therefore need a bit more care. We're at that stage in our careers where we might be really very senior, but then also might be very bored and thinking, what the hell next? Body and energy levels are totally unpredictable because of a perimenopause or menopause, which is hitting us from every angle. And then that can, in and of itself, it's not just hormonal change. I think this whole life stage comes at a time when perhaps we've been with our partner for 20, 30 years, been in the same career. Everything begins to think, wow, what next? And that can really knock your kind of confidence, your sense of joy, and that momentum takes a real hit. So just for 2 minutes, I'm going to give you 2 minutes. I just want you to, you don't need to share this. This is just for you so that you actually have time to reflect in this call. I just want you to write down 2 areas where you feel most off track or depleted. It could be your fitness, could be your nutrition, whatever it is, those 2 things that pop into your head, first of all, that you just think, oh, I just I just feel really like not great about those 2 areas. And then I want you to think, where did you want to be? So did you have an idea earlier on in the year where you said, right, this is it, I'm going to do this, this, and this? And therefore, what do you think has taken you off track? So I'm just going to give you like another 90 seconds just to jot that down. I think it's really important to, uh, now that you've taken the time out of your evening to attend this call, that actually you get something from it and you have a little bit time to reflect, because we're often running around in fight or flight response and don't have time to reflect. And often it can be quite good not to censor yourself as you're writing it. You might be like, oh no, is it that one? Or, oh, I'm not sure, or that sounds silly. I'm not going to ask you to share it. Literally just write it, and you might be surprised at then reading it back and thinking, actually, I hadn't actually thought about that, or kind of confronted it properly. Okay, does anyone need more time? If you're finished, give me a yes in the chat. So then the audit. So why do you keep getting derailed? And this is what I see, and I talk to women all the time on the phone who are interested in coaching, and this is often what happens. And it comes up often in the community about when people go off the rails. It's that all or nothing mindset. It's really, really common with women, driven, successful women, to have an all or nothing mindset or a perfection mindset. So, what I mean by that is that either it prevents you starting something because you are waiting for that perfect moment of clear space and time. When you've got no competing times on your priority, you've got this big space that you just imagine, oh, I can do all this stuff, I can hit my goals because there's nothing in the way. At the age of whatever age you are on this call, probably 45 to 60 maybe, you probably know damn well that it doesn't exist. There is never a clear space of time. So waiting for that perfection is silly because it just won't happen. And then the other thing that often happens is this kind of like, I'm going to hit it. I've got this perfect time. I'm going to hit it really hard. I'm all in. And then when you don't have the time, you're all out. There's nothing in between. It's just like, oh, I feel rubbish. Right, I'm going to go out and hit a really, really, really hard workout. You hit it, you feel really good. And then tomorrow you've got like loads of things going on. And then for the next week, you don't do anything. So what and then as soon as you get small setbacks, it's all off the plan. And then the other thing about getting derailed, so if you at work, you probably always have this kind of structure that you work to for your work or your job. You sit down, you think, okay, what have I got coming up? What am I doing? If you're a manager, if you're a senior role, what do I have to achieve? Even if you're not in a senior role, there's always something in your job that you kind of plan out. But yet, when it comes to your lifestyle, your kind of want to lose weight, you want to get stronger, you want to feel better, feel energized. There's no goal, there's no plan, no goal. It's just straight into I want this. You don't plan it out. And therefore, it's really difficult to follow any steps because you just have this vague idea. I want to do this. Um, and therefore it's no surprise that you don't achieve it, whatever it is. So if you've ever trained for a marathon or a 5K, you know that you have little steps towards it to achieve that goal. And so what happens in the end when you have no plan is you often default to old habits, old behavior and old mindsets, because we're often operating in survival mode. So if there's no clear structure to follow, you will fall back on things that you've done in the past that obviously don't work, because if they worked, you wouldn't be sitting on this call. And then the other thing, kind of slightly tied to that, is seasonal disruptions. Obviously, we're talking about this as we head into July. Often people are going on holiday around this time, but it's the same whether it's Christmas, Easter, summer holiday, May bank holiday, August bank holiday. There's always something like that that can throw women off, and you think, oh, at this kind of time, if you have got younger kids maybe who are just finishing school, there's also that whole time of like, oh, the kids are off, I just need time to recover. I feel like really drained of energy, I'll drop off the exercise. When actually, at this time of life, we have no energy, not because we're exercising and because we're eating nutritiously. We have no energy because often work has taken over all our time, and we're not able to actually spend time doing those things that actually will bring us energy, like exercise and nourishing nutrition. So the audit, how do you create structure? How do you create the structure that will create success? So these are like the kind of three broad arms, I'd say, of the program. Is to always think about the minimums over the maximums, so consistency. So focusing what you can consistently maintain rather than perfect or unsustainable goals. So the other point of that as well is studies can show that if you set a huge goal and you don't break that down, that can also prove overwhelming. So you need to think of what your end goal is and then break it down into smaller, manageable chunks, and you just focus on that next chunk, not the end goal. Trust the process. Don't give in immediately and think, oh, it's not working. All progress goes up and down, up and down, up and down. If you're waiting for this like perfect or upward or downward, if you're thinking about weight loss, downward weight loss, upward muscle, then every time you have a setback, you're going to give up. It doesn't happen that way. You've got to be thinking about the consistency. So a way to help you focus on that is to think about tracking your wins, those little wins. So in terms of resistance training, rather than going into the gym or going to a YouTube channel and just cherry picking routines off and think, oh, well, I'm doing something there. You want to actually repeat the same workout. You kind of want 3 workouts a week, strength only. And you want to repeat them for about 4 to 6 weeks and aim for progressive overload. So generally increasing your weights. Now, if you're somebody who has often avoided the gym because you think, or avoided strength work because you think it's boring, this will change it. So I have got a client who literally said to me this the other day. She's a herbalist, so not someone that you would normally associate with the gym. And she never thought of herself as a gym person. She was like, I can't believe I used to find it so boring. And now I just feel so empowered by lifting these weights and seeing how much I can lift and increasing. She's gone from 20 kilo deadlift to 90 kilos during her time coaching with me. So that in and of itself can take that kind of obsession that can happen if you're trying to lose weight around just thinking about your weight to thinking how empowering and what progress I'm making in a different area that will go towards those goals. Think about your body composition. So not just your your weight, you'll actually want to be thinking about what is my muscle mass, and I'm going to get onto why that's important, and what is my body fat. So it takes your focus off your weight more to the body composition, because really that's what people want when they come to me. They say, I want to get rid of the body fat and I want to tone. And actually, what that means is you want to be able to see your muscles so you look a bit leaner, which is about losing body fat. And if you want to build your muscles, it's about building that muscle. So it's about body composition. And focus on the process. Recognize that motivation is a marketing myth. It doesn't exist. Energy and feeling energized by the workouts you do and having that progress is one thing. Motivation is a myth. A lot of the time, these things are boring, but actually, if you just focus on accepting that, taking the steps, certainly in terms of working to progressive overload, then you can start really enjoying the workouts and it's not boring. But a lot of the other stuff you've got to recognize is just putting in the steps. And then another thing is to anchor your habits. So establishing consistent morning and evening rituals that ground your day, regardless of anything else that's going on. So for an example, what I do with lots of my clients is I don't, energy and feeling fatigued is massive at this time of life. When I look at most women's lifestyle habits, what I notice over and over again is that people don't drink enough water. So we're so busy putting all our symptoms down to perimenopause or menopause. And there are some things that we're just not doing from a foundational level. So really a consistent anchoring thing is tying a healthy habit to something you do every day anyway, so that you set up that kind of natural alarm. So when you clean your teeth, as soon as you clean your teeth, you drink a glass of water, or you do it beforehand, so that first thing in the morning, you're beginning to hydrate. Now, a little thing I do with some clients is I say, drink a glass of water plus seven more during the day. And talking about a growth and a fixed mindset, a growth mindset, someone who'd be like, okay, I'm going to take on that process. We'll just do it. They don't ask, they'll just kind of get on with it. Someone else with a fixed mindset will immediately say, oh, I can't drink that much water. And at no point have I said the size of the water glass. So you could start off literally with a teacup, sorry, even an egg cup full of water. And it's just that habit of little bits of water during the day that begins to reignite the fact that you are thirsty and that you need to hydrate. So anchoring habits, things like that. So rather than if you find that you really like a sweet thing after a savory meal, that's an anchoring habit, but it's about switching that sweet thing to that same anchoring habit, eating dinner. So maybe that your anchoring habit could be eating a bit more protein at that time, whether your sweet thing can be yogurt with fruit, so you've got a bit more protein. So those kinds of things. And then weekly preparation for success setting. This is really important. We probably never go into work and start our day. I don't. I don't know about you. I never start my day sitting down and just go without thinking about what I'm going to do for the rest of the day. I'm always trying to plan my day. Exactly the same with your lifestyle habits, your nutrition and your exercise. You sit on a Sunday or a Saturday or Friday before you leave work, you think ahead and the week ahead, and you think, okay, what's coming up? So rather than arriving on Wednesday, for example, where you've got a hellish day at work, and then also you've got to drop in on your parents, and then you've got to, I don't know, a phone, a utility bill to change it, to query a bill, and you know that that day is going to be hell. Prepare for it. Think, okay, I'm not going to do my workout on that day because it's going to be really busy. It's going to be really busy. I'm not going to have time to cook my food. I'm going to go to Waitrose or Tesco's or Sainsbury's or Pret in the morning before I'm hungry and starving, and I'm going to buy my lunch and my dinner there so it's all prepared. So those kind of things are really important to ride the tide of those kind of survival days where you literally are just firefighting and surviving. But you don't, if you prepare in advance for it, you're in control. And then avoiding the seasonal fuck it moments. So as we get into summer, you'll get lots of people, and Christmas is the same, where people go, oh God, you know what? I'm just gonna just forget everything and come back to it all in September. When you're in midlife, when you're younger, you can almost get away with that. But when you're in midlife, when we're already losing lots of muscle mass, and therefore our metabolism slowing down, the longer you spend out of exercise now, the harder and the longer it will take to get back nowadays. So you really can't really afford to take off like 4 months without thinking about building a muscle. So I've got these little two graphs here. So the graph on the left is one of my clients who, let me see if I can use this. I don't know whether yet. One of my clients lost all this weight with me, then didn't do the program, went off over Christmas, and then that happened. Came back, went away for Easter, didn't do the program, came back, went away. And you can see this like every time she's stopped the program and then she's gone, oh God, I've got to come back. She's put on this massive, not massive, I mean, we're still hugely uh, lost a lot since when she first started, but it's always this slightly up and down, up and down, up and down, which I'm talking to her about. So she doesn't go off the program all the time. And then Rachel here, one of my other clients, you can track, and she used to really panic. She used to be like, oh God, I'm just gonna like, someone who had traditionally been a real yo-yo dieter always just felt like, oh, I can't, every time I go away, it's just pointless. I've failed, it's been a mistake, I can't do it. As you can see here, she'd have like a half-term holiday. Oop, up she went a tiny little bit, plateaued, came back down again. Tiny little Christmas thing. And I was always like saying, you don't have to be like going out and doing like ridiculous workouts, which you don't have to do anyway at any time in this program at all, or any program that you do to get results. Um, uh, but she was thinking, oh, I don't want to be like strict over Christmas. And again, the Kickass Midlife Method is not a strict diet. It's not about that. But I was just saying you just have to relax because you're going to be fine. You just go and do your thing. You come back and you're going to come down again. And that's what's happened. So you always, as I was saying before, are having these little increases because you go on holiday. But actually, if you keep consistent and don't go completely off the boil, then it's never going to be this big rise and then having to go back again to thinking, oh my God, I've got to go back again. It's just little ups and then you're consistently down again. So if you're going away, going on holiday, it's really about kind of trying to set yourself some non-negotiables. And these are as important for your mindset, for the consistency around your mindset, as it is about the actual physical thing of doing it. Because the more you get out of that habit in your mind of saying, I've got to do these three things every week, the harder it is to kind of build that kind of discipline and consistency around it. So one of the things I used to do, going back to Girls Run the World, I used to run a national campaign, called Runuary, which was to run every single day of January. So I did it for 10 years. I had thousands of women take part. And this was obviously in the depth of January, so not a very nice time to go out running. But it was a non-negotiable to be part of the challenge. You had to run every single day. It could be 100 meters, it could be 5, it could be 5K, whatever, as long as it was every day. And so many thousands of women did it and were saying that actually it was easier to commit to something every day than it was to sometimes think about doing like now and then, because once you started to build this consistency, it was just in your head. It was a non-negotiable that you just had to go out and do it. So for your holidays, you don't have to take equipment. You just have to move and think about 3 movement workouts. Have a non-negotiable sleep window. I'm sure lots of us don't really want to stay out and go partying when we're on holiday. We want to actually get some sleep and hydrate, keep that hydration. And then when it comes to your nutrition, be flexible but intentional eating. So again, I'm going to touch on that nutrition point later, and I'll tell you a little bit more about what I mean by that. But in terms of your mindset, it's thinking not oh my God, I can't eat that because I'm going to put on weight, or I can't do this. It's about switching from this elimination mindset and restriction and fear of food to looking at your plate of food, and there is amazing food all over the world. And actually, holiday gives you a real chance to explore lots. I'm a real foodie. But it's trying to think about your food and looking at it and thinking, is that going to nourish and energize me? Is it going to nourish my bones, my brain, and my body? If it doesn't do one of those things, then try not to have it. If it does, then have it. Okay, and then coming on to the menopause symptoms of this time of life, which can and often is derailing people, women at this time. So, what's happening? And just to be very clear, so that you know, I'm sure you do nowadays, because it's much more of a big topic now, that perimenopause is before menopause. Menopause is the name given to the one day where you have gone 12 months without a period or a cycle. Now, if you're on the Marina coil, it's a little bit difficult to know. All you can go is on your symptoms. Post-menopause is a year since you last had a period. So that might give you a bit more of an insight. But often, so what's happening? Our hormones are changing, so we're less able to handle the stress hormone cortisol. That's our fight and flight response. So that is a very useful hormone. So try not to think about your stress hormone as being something that's really awful and we can't have a stress hormone. It's important. The cortisol is an adrenaline. That adrenaline thing, it gets us up in the morning and out of bed. It helps us to exercise. It helps us to handle stuff at work. So actually, the fight and flight response hormone is important. We don't want to try and get rid of it, but we're less able, and we now produce more cortisol and less able to deal with that. And that's what we want to mitigate against the excess cortisol, because that does affect how we store fat and also our energy, that feeling of up and down all the time. Um, Obviously, the decline in estrogen impacts our sleep patterns. We get hot flashes, night sweats, etc. If you're feeling like a lack of, I shouldn't have used the word lower motivation, but less energy, that is often also due to a decline in hormones, including testosterone. So our testosterone is also affected, and that obviously is related to our muscle mass, our energy, our libido. Higher risk of insulin resistance, so again affecting how we transport sugars around the body and making again more susceptible to fat gain around the middle, and then decrease in muscle mass, that longevity tissue. So thinking about muscle mass is not just affecting our body composition, but it's actually a really important metabolic health tissue, and it drives metabolism. But what's really important to understand about these symptoms is that they are accentuated, by poor lifestyle habits. And some of these symptoms are only increased due to, for instance, putting on body fat, more fat around the middle, and our blood sugars. That is still, we're only more susceptible to fat gain around the middle, depending on what we eat. So yes, hormone change can affect things, but if we're not eating the types of food that cause that, then it won't happen anyway. So it's just being a little bit cautious and understanding that yes, hormonal symptoms are affecting us and make us more susceptible to certain things, but lifestyle habits and changes can mean that that doesn't happen. Not all of this. I'm not saying all of this. Obviously, there are some things that, in terms of mood swings, all of that, as I'm sure you recognize, are also hormonally related. So, what do you do in terms of this midlife stage to help mitigate those symptoms beyond? And I'm just talking, obviously, naturally here about the natural things, not HRT. So it's really important, to specify here that we're talking protein and macro rich focus in your meals. So no doubt all over the internet. Every time you look at Instagram, you're being hit by things about protein, protein, protein. And what's really important is not to get so fixated in thinking it's about eating more protein than your body actually needs, or making your whole plate like keto and all about protein. It's not. It's about making sure that all those three macros, and by that I mean your protein. So in things like your chicken, pork, your fish, dairy, that kind of thing. And your other macros are your carbohydrates and your healthy fats. So you need all three. Excuse me. Excuse me. So you need all three on each plate. But it's really important that when it comes to carbohydrates, it's a low glycemic index carbohydrate. Does anyone know what that means? One if you do, two if you don't in the chat, just to make sure you're all listening and I'm not just waffling on. One you do. Sorry, I forgot what I said. Did I say one for yes? Yes, great. So you know that low glycemic, yes, releases energy slowly. So things like quinoa as opposed to white rice and pasta, which have a high glycemic index. Sweet potato, medium glycemic index. Chips and white potato, higher glycemic index. Pineapple, higher glycemic index. Berries, lower glycemic index. So it's not good or bad, it's just how energy is released. So obviously, if I was training one of my aging adventurously clients who I'm training for an event, you absolutely need fast release glycemic index within what you're having. But day to day, during the day, you want these low glycemic index foods, and then healthy fats. So things like your olives, your olive oil, your oily fish, your nuts, your seeds, that kind of thing. And then muscle movement. You absolutely have to lift weight to create muscle. So running, walking, Pilates, Zumba, yoga, they do not do it. And it's not just about choosing very lightweight, it's about, as I mentioned, progressive overload. We lose between around 10% of our muscle mass between the start of perimenopause and when we go through the menopause. And then post 50, it escalates. So we start losing more and more muscle. Why it's so important is it's a metabolic tissue. So therefore, it burns more calories even at rest. So it burns energy rather than thinking about it as calories. So the more muscle you have, not only does it mean that you'll be able to continue to stand up, move around, function, do all the things you love, enjoy the adventures that all the money you're working to save up, you can actually enjoy it in later life. It's just a really important part of your health. So you need to do strength training, and therefore, what I'm very keen about also is that rather than doing it because you're ticking off a box, that you learn to enjoy that, and that definitely comes with progressive overload and varying your and having structure with that kind of that resistance training rather than just going into the gym or working out from home and picking something off YouTube. It has to be structured so that you know how to progressively overload. Parasympathetic practice. So that's kind of that's that kind of rest and recovery mode. That's when we get the benefits of resistance training, also come down from that cortisol fight and flight response we're in a lot of the time, through work, things going on in our life, all of that. So when I'm talking about parasympathetic practice, that can be anything from yoga to reading to walking out in the fresh air, anything like that that gets you into that rest and recovery, including sleep, obviously, as well. So just another, because I've been talking for quite a long time, I'm aware. So just right now, I want you to write down what meals you've had today, what times you've had them, and whether they had all three macros in them. And be specific about your macros. Just reflect on what you've had, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and the times that you had them as well. If you had snacks, what times did you have the snacks? I'm just going to give you 2 minutes. Oops. So someone I was speaking to today, and it often happens at the weekend, couldn't remember what she'd had for three of those days. And it's really difficult to create change if there's no consciousness around what you're eating. And when I say that consciousness, I'm really talking about that consciousness about a nourishing mindset. What's nourishing my body? And not being aware is certainly an indicative of an unnourishing response because often that would mean you're grabbing and going because you can't remember what you've eaten. So it's not obsessive. I know it has that kind of idea, particularly for our generation, that kind of tracking your food is somehow obsessive, has got a really bad connotation, but actually it can empower you because it just helps you give you the data about why you're feeling crap, why you've got no energy, why, it's not just about like kind of your body composition goals, it's about why do I feel crap? Why do I feel totally fatigued? It's often not just because of hormone changes, often with women because they're simply not eating enough in mealtime. So you're going, I can sometimes see women that in the morning they'll put something like one egg down. And that's what, if you think back to your kids being younger, you would have given your kid when they were a toddler. So little surprise that by lunchtime, mid-morning, you feel absolutely shit, no energy, and you think, God, I've got to have a snack. Okay, did you all remember what everything you'd had, or was it a bit hazy? Yes or no in the chat? Yeah, you remembered. Great. Would you be able to remember yesterday or been using my fitness pal? Cool, great. And then how to course correct. So obviously you're here because you want to course correct because something's not gone according to plan. And it's also really important to remember how to course correct, not just for now, but the future, because there will always be times when you go off track and you need to just course correct and just come back to thinking what actually is my goal, where do I want to get to, and just remind yourself and how to do that. So a really good mindset switch is to think about recommitting, not restarting. So it's not that you're having to start from ground zero. It's about recommitting to the plan that you've got. So as I was saying, using data over drama. So using my fitness pal is an example of that. And also think about tracking your body composition. So lots of women, when they come into into the coaching, will say, "Oh God, I don't want to weigh myself." It's and I understand it's got really bad connotations, but without your weight, you have absolutely no idea how much energy your body needs. So without your weight, it's like just trying to hit a target with your eyes closed because you don't know that you're someone who is like 60 kilos compared to someone who's 80 kilos will need different energy requirements and different amounts of food. Someone who's 60 kilos and has 40% of muscle mass compared to someone who's 60 kilos with 20% of muscle mass will need something different. So knowing those numbers, it's not a kind of something about, oh my God, something to be scared of or have an emotional attachment to it. It's pure and simple data that you need in order to be accurate about your goals. Otherwise, you're working blind. So when I say about your TDEE, I mean your total daily energy expenditure. And that is dictated by your weight, your height, your muscle mass. So without those stats, You don't know. So all those years, I worked on obviously magazines, as I've said, all those years magazines would put those diets in about the 1,200 calorie diet that people would stick to. Total rubbish because there's very few people that should be on a 1,200 cal diet. Maybe if you're 5'3" or 5'4", but again, I don't know the muscle mass, but not very many people are 5'3", 5'4". You need more than 1,200. Considering, yeah, I can see that someone's using my Fitness Pal, but consider tracking intake if you're not for at least 2 weeks to track your macro intake. So we're not just talking about your energy intake. We're talking about how much protein you're getting, because 100% of women who've come into my program are not eating sufficient protein. Now, I'm not talking about that you need more protein than you need a protein rich diet. I'm talking about having enough protein for normal levels for your weight and height. So again, it's dictated by your weight and height. And most women aren't meeting the minimum that they require. So it's really important. So that's why you see a lot around protein. Without protein, you can do as many workouts as you want. It will make no difference if you're not eating the protein, because muscle tissue can only be rebuilt with protein. So you can't do one without the other. Otherwise, if you're going in and doing all these wonderful workouts and they're not eating sufficient protein, you're undermining your efforts. So it's really important to do that. And then reflect back and look objectively at what's happened without judgment. So within my community, every week I look back at someone's tracking, and you can really easily see kind of habits, mindsets that have happened, and it's just about addressing those and just thinking, well, what happened in that moment? It's not about the food; it's normally about the structure. Normally, something in that day would have been really busy, they hadn't planned for it, and it's about what I call writing a thrive in survival mode toolkit. So those days when and there will always be a day or two like that in the week, there's going to be hell in advance. Like you could do it after this call, write your thriving in survival mode toolkit. Like, what time would you get up? What's the first thing you're gonna do? What lunch and dinner you're gonna have and have planned and made? Maybe you could put things in the freezer already. So for instance, if you've come across Tide food soups, which are really lovely, they do a really amazing spinach and lentil dal. I would literally sometimes get big packs of those, freeze them, have some prawns maybe or some chicken in the freezer. If I know I've got one of those days coming up, I'd just defrost those, and that would be kind of my dinner. You'd have like the lentil dal, add some chicken, and then you've got like a really nice meal. It would have taken like 2 seconds, and it's done and dusted, and that will fit for those kind of days when you're like, there's no way I'm going to be able to cook something or prepare something. It needs to be really quick, otherwise I'm going to go and end up having fish and chips. Um, and then what worked using that data, think about analyzing patterns so you identify specific adjustments. So another thing that is a big breakthrough for a lot of women is, that time usually between 2 and 4 is normally when it most happens, where most of us, men and women, get bored. If you're working from home, you start wandering around the kitchen, like opening cupboards and getting like chocolate out or whatever it is. Or if you're working in the office, you would have gone, maybe gone down to the coffee shop, or I don't know, even if they exist, having restaurants or canteens and offices now, but you go to that or go to the machine and get something else. And actually what's happening is not boredom. You think it's boredom, but actually you're hungry and you run out of glycogen. So you're fatigued, your brain's not working. What you need is food, but the trick is a protein snack. So a protein shake between 2 and 4 every day. You will be amazed at how that gets you through to the end of the day, all the way to dinner without you being hungry and feeling energy, and it will give you energy. So, like tip, if you take one thing away from this, I would honestly try that, but watch the type of protein shake that you get, because some of them are not good. And then pivot, don't punish yourself. So make strategic changes. Don't think I'm useless, I'm a failure, I can't do it, or give yourself this strict thing the next day where I'm going to be like living on salad. Or what often happens is that whole like you have a big lunch, maybe you have a couple of drinks at lunch, and then you think, oh, I'm gonna like not I'm gonna have a tiny dinner so that I'm going to balance my calories. Don't do that. You know, your body needs energy when it needs energy equally throughout the day. If you have a big lunch and you go over because you have to also make sure you eat at the proper dinner, go over. It doesn't matter. It will be better for you. So, wrap up, final reflection. Midlife isn't the problem, nor is your workload or what's going on in your life. It's your choice to prioritize how you want to reclaim this chapter and the rest of 2025. So, feeling energized doesn't come from just sorting out your hormones. Obviously, that can help, but really, you want to think about your foundations, hydrating properly, nutrition that's nourishing, that gives you that energy, those slow release carbohydrates, that protein, essential fatty acids. And then another massive one is just doing the thing you said you were going to do and not overthinking it and leaving it festering. I don't know how many of you have been thinking about doing something for ages and have worn yourself out by overthinking it, thinking about what should I do? How do I start? You know, oh, I'll leave it to another day, and it will always be there festering in the back of your mind, like that horrible thing, the horrible work task you've got to do maybe. And nowadays, anything that I dread, I do it first thing in the morning because then I just so much more energized. It doesn't like sap my energy the rest of the day. Understand that there is no perfect time and never will be to start anything. It is about starting and being consistent and relying and wondering where your motivation has gone. Motivation is a marketing myth. It doesn't exist. You build your structure that works for you with your life, and then you stick to that structure. That brings momentum and that brings energy. And that feeling of energy is what you're looking for, not the motivation. So this is your time to reclaim the season and this midlife chapter. So again, if you're interested in that offer, you can contact me, get that WhatsApp number through that QR code and send me the word Kickass.